Good afternoon. My name is Jade Jackson. I'm an associate attorney at Meyer LLP. I practice insurance defense and professional liability as the litigator there. I'm here today as part of DBA's Living Legends interview series with the legendary, iconic, beautiful
Oh, wow.
Kaufman County District Attorney Erleigh Wiley. So thank you so much for joining us.
Wow, that's a nice introduction.
How are you today?
I'm good. I think I'm a little nervous. And then it's a little feeling of awe when you're doing something that's called a living legend. Makes you feel like, God, I've attained something I didn't know. But I'm so glad that you're the person that's interviewing me because we are friends.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked through the years, so this will be fun.
We've known each other since I was in law school.
That's right.
At SMU. So it's been more than 10 years now.
Yes.
It's flown by.
It has, because I remember, I mean, you had a previous life as far as other job, but then you were such a good student and you wanted to be a great lawyer. And look at you now, you are.
Okay, so
Okay, you don't talk about you. You can't talk about you. This is
back to you.
Okay.
You have been an attorney for 30 years or so.
Oh,
roughly.
absolutely. It is hard to imagine that's like 34 years, 35th year. It goes by fast.
So your background is that you graduated from Kaufman High School.
Yes.
You're a Kaufman County native.
I am.
And then you went to college at Texas Tech.
Yes.
University in Lubbock.
Red Raider.
And you majored in finance.
I did. I was a business major.
Then you went from there to law school at UT in Austin.
Yes. Texas law. There's only one. I'm sorry. You went to SMU. I'm joking.
And I went to OU. So boomer.
Ooh,
Boomer.
wow.
Mm-hmm.
We remember how that game went this year.
Ooh, I don't want to talk about that. Okay. And so then you were admitted to the bar in 1989.
That's right. That's how we got the 2035.
This year.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about your trajectory after law school.
At Texas Law, or then it was just University of Texas School of Law, I really didn't think about prosecution. It was more business, transactional. In fact, my career was going to be in oil and gas, and I interned and clerked in the summer for in-house corporate counsel. I was going to make that my career. North Dallas, it was Box Crow, and they had oil and gas and cement. It was going to be something really different, really fun, not super exciting, but that's what I wanted to do.
Because of the money aspect?
The money aspect, my brother was in construction. He had worked with the company. And so I knew the owner, president at the time, and it seemed like a good fit. You go to college, you go to law school, you do something to make money. And I just, I won't say a fluke, but just the association with some other women that this summer I got out of law school, took the bar. I took a trip with my mom, and I remember coming back and living in Dallas and was just kind of hesitating starting. They were like, "Oh, are you going to start?" I go, "Oh, yeah, I took the February bar, found out you passed, and then, oh, I'm going to start in May, June." And so I was kind of hesitating about what I was going to do, when I was going to start.
And so how did you make your way to the DA's office?
A friend said, "They're hiring. You should apply." I'm like, I don't know anything about prosecution. I took a juvenile justice course that I loved. That was the closest thing I'd ever done to what I ultimately ended up doing. So I said, "Oh, sure, I'll interview." And then she explained to me why. It's that the litigation experience, that you'll learn more than you ever have, that it is exciting, that there's still young people, and it's police officers, and maybe the TV show then was The Practice and not Law and Order. I can't even remember. And so I went, I interviewed, I got hired. We laugh now. I think that then commissioner, they were kind of giving the DA's office, they had a reputation of not hiring diverse people. And I fit the bill. I didn't know that at the time. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but it makes for a great story. And worked there and practiced for about 11 and a half, 12 years. Went back home, which was Kaufman County from Dallas, 30 miles east. Ran for judge, won, and sat on the bench for, again, it's about 11-year stints in here. Maybe you pick up a little here and there, 11 and a half, almost 12. And then in 2013, there was a murder, and the DA.
A double murder.
A triple murder, because the DA was killed and his wife in their home. But first, it was the chief felony prosecutor, Mike and Cynthia McClellan. I was appointed by the governor, and I did that in 2013, and I cannot believe that we're cresting 2025, which means 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's how a suggestion to try something that thought you'd be exciting. And then the desire to be back home and work in my community. And then the outrage that people were getting killed has been like the building blocks. So, I mean, it wasn't like what your career counsel would tell you, reason to go into these areas of law.
Now, you're first generation attorney, correct?
And that makes a tremendous difference, right?
So tell me about how your background shaped you and how it pushed you into law.
Well, you know, at my age, the civil rights era, the heyday was in the 60s, and particularly the mid to late 60s, around the time I was born. But those stories and what my parents would talk about and the racial component of where this country was in the 60s and the 70s, I think did shape my experience in thinking that the law was something that could change wrongdoings. And so that always played in your mind. My mother was in the healthcare field. She was a nurse. My dad was an educator at the school system. So they had gone to college. They were definitely first generation that finished college, particularly my mother's family. Yeah. No one else had achieved that much. And so we were expected to go to college, but going to law school was different. But it just seemed like a path where you could help people. Prosecution wasn't it necessarily in my mind, but at some point I figured out you could impact people more when you were a prosecutor because you made the decisions about cases filed, recommendations. You made decisions about the safety of your community, particularly as an elected position, what cases you're going to try, what you're not. So as a young prosecutor, you were just trying cases and learning what this job was all about. So yeah, my family background. My parents were people that service was important. What can you do to serve your community?
I'm glad you said that about helping people. I'm a former assistant district attorney myself. I'm a former criminal defense attorney. And so some criticism in our community in particular, in the African American community, is how could you be, the man? How could you be on that side of the table? Can you speak to how important it is for people who look like us to hold these positions?
Who's the decision maker? Who's the person that's going to look at somebody the same way that I'm going to look at somebody? Is that I have a shared background. Now, that doesn't mean that I may not get to the same decision point as someone that's from a different background. It doesn't mean that you have to be, in our case, African American to have compassion for someone that's African American. That's not. But just that you have the same shared experience. So when I look at something, I think I bring a different objectivity. But I think it's important for us to be at the table making the decisions for our communities, that way that it impacts African Americans, but also the other people, the Hispanic community, the white community, if you want to say that, the decisions I make, because I'm a citizen, I want to be safe, but I don't necessarily see a young Black man as a threat. I'm not saying that other people do, but I don't. But I can see a young African American man as a threat, depending on the circumstances, and we would do what was appropriate in that case. So I think it's important, just with our own shared experience, that you bring your experience to decision making in these stakeholder meetings. And I hope that I do that, but I also want to bring everybody else along. It's not a you against me or me against you, however you want to say that.
Okay. What would people be surprised to know about you?
Well, I think people are surprised. I don't think that I'm creative, but I do play the piano for myself. People are like, oh, you play the piano? I'm like, I can play the piano. I mean, it's not pretty, but my mother wanted me to always have a skill that you can entertain yourself. I don't practice enough because I don't make time for that.
Do you have a piano at home?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And my kids also play. It's important to be able to contend yourself, to be contented, And so sometimes when you're, and it's unfortunate to say this because I know I love my husband's company and my children's company and friends. But if I find myself at my home alone, which is not often, the TV is not on. I like music and I will play the piano. I will watch TV with people, but it's a distraction for me. So I prefer books. I love books. If I had time, I'd read more books. And of course, I like to write. So I think those are things that are, people don't know that. So of course, we know that from you helping me and the book, and we wrote a book about my experience in 2013. So people may be surprised. I do like to talk, but I'd rather but sometimes you'd rather be quiet and get into the music and then listening to music and then the writing. And so sometimes I think about a book I want to write, and when you're in a book that you are thinking about, the characters are with you, and it's a weird little thing.
You brought up the book, so let's talk about it.
Okay.
So you wrote a book called Target on My Back.
Yes, ma'am.
Published in 2017?
It was published 17. I think the publication date might actually be 2016, but it really rolled out in 17. Yes, ma'am.
And the book was about your experience after Eric Williams committed those murders and being a suspect on his hit list. Can you talk about that?
I wrote the book on the suggestion of a friend that says even though it happened to you, you're going to forget what happened. There's nothing like the recounting of something. And of course, as attorneys, we know the refreshing of your memory about a document that you write at another time is so important. See that in offense reports. And so for me, it was originally to put down and have an accounting of what happened.
And let's talk about what happened.
Okay, that's fair. In January of 2013, the chief felony prosecutor was killed in the early morning hours, 8:20 a.m. I believe the exact date was January 30th. That's right. And he was on his way to work, and Mark was killed, and he was shot down assassin style at the parking lot adjacent, about 80 yards away from the courthouse. It was somber. It was frightening. The suspects got away, or we didn't know if it was suspect or suspects got away. The investigation ran its ground. They had many different people that said what they saw. I thought it was one, thought it was two people, but ultimately there wasn't anyone arrested. And 2 months later, and that was like March 31st on the eve of April Fool's, which was 4/1, which was, I believe, Sunday. Mm-hmm. There were 2 murders. They happened in the night, in the twilight hours at the home of the McClellans. And Cynthia, his wife, was killed, and she was found in the doorway, gunned down. And Mike was killed, and when you go into the entryway in the hallway, and it was horrible.
Mike McClellan at the time was the Kaufman County elected DA.
Yes.
And you were a sitting judge.
I was. And his wife was there with him. And so we had 3 murders. Then it was the investigation of determined these all did go together. You had the same prosecution, the same office, figuring that the wife, and the unfortunate term would have been collateral damage, but that the people that they were going after were the prosecutors. Within the terms of that, with that investigation, subsequently, there had to be a replacement now for the elected DA. Rick Perry appointed me, and I became the DA, and that was like late April of 2013.
And then how did your life change?
Well, leading up to that, everyone's life changed, but particularly mine. And that's what brings me back to the story. Because in that, everyone that was around the courthouse, around the prosecutors, the judges, we didn't know literally who was next, who else was going to get killed, who was the next person that was going to be targeted. It seemed that there may have been a list and that they were going down it. As it turned out, we did find out that there was a list. It wasn't imagined. And the next person that was going to be executed on that list was me. So because Eric Williams had, for I hate slang, had beef with me because of some of the work we did together when I was the judge. And it went back to, why did he kill Mark and Mike? They prosecuted him for stealing some equipment. Sounds crazy.
Very petty.
Petty. the theft of some computer equipment. And his beef with me, for lack of a better term, was because he had pay sheets that he had overbilled the county on, and he and I discussed it. No charges were filed, but it was a discussion with us, me as the judge, him as the attorney, getting the appointed work as an attorney in Garden Line for children. And so that led to his animus. But of course, when you're talking about something like that, it doesn't make sense to normal people, but for, you know, a sociopath that feels slighted by something, in their mind, it may make sense. And so the target on my back talked about the detail that we have for the family, the way that our home, even though they were there to help, had changed our life. We had armed guards, Homeland Security was there. The security that came to bear in our community was tremendous. Oh my gosh, Secret Service, Homeland Security, DPS, everybody, boots on the ground at Kaufman. It looked like something out of a movie set with people. I mean, there were snipers on the courthouse roof at the funeral because it was surreal. Once you got 3 people all within what looked to be a crime spree, because now you had 3 people that had been killed. I mean, we had a serial killer, right? I mean, he's killing people, but we weren't sure the reason. And then subsequent to me taking the position, he was actually put into custody, held for one reason, and then confirmed that he was the suspect on the 3. So people thought I was nuts taking the job with the suspect on the loose, and then to later find out as they prepared for trial that I was on his hit list and I was next, and that came out in the trial.
You had to testify, correct?
I did.
How is that for you?
I testified in punishment, and you know, we talk a lot, but it is different being under oath and people questioning you. I will say the attorneys did an artful job, and mine was really, when you're doing a capital case, you look at the issue of future danger and mitigation, you know, and the future danger aspect of that, because you're answering special issues, is this suspect, is this defendant a future danger? Well, a killer would make a good argument since he was well-educated, justice of the peace, spare this guy's life. The pivotal point was the fact that if he was not executed, if you didn't answer the special issues in a certain way, he would get life without parole. He's a danger. And why is he a danger? There's a hit list. He wasn't done yet.
Right.
And the jury agreed.
Now that this is coming up on the 12th anniversary and he's on death row.
He is on death row.
How does that hit you? Do you think about this? Is this something that's top of mind for you?
It is not top of mind, but it does hit me from occasionally when I talk to people, because other people are really, like, people are like, that was crazy. Why did you do that? Weren't you afraid? And so when you look back, it's like some events that we'll have in our life. I mean, you just talked about it. We went through law school. When you look back at yourself, and it's like you were another person in that.
How did we do that?
How do we do that? How do we juggle all that with the kids being little, with this? And so when I look back, I'm like, one, why did I do that? Oh, I remember I was mad. Like, how does somebody get to go just coming blasting people in like 𝐏𝐥𝐞𝐚 and Kaufman? No, we ain't doing that. That is not happening.
Okay, so you channeled your rage.
I channeled my rage. It was just, we're not going to have this. I mean, people were literally afraid. You could see people in the grocery store just afraid, because we deal in prosecution with horrible people more than normal people. This is a small percentage of the population that does the crime that we see on a felony level.
True.
Most of the people that we deal with are just knuckleheads doing stupid things in their miscreants and little behavior, or traffic tickets, or not showing up, and that's why they get a warrant. People aren't used to people shooting people in cold blood or sexually assaulting their child. Thank God.
Yeah, it's egregious.
It's egregious, and it's beyond what normal people should have to think about.
Changing lanes a little bit here. Given that you've been a prosecutor, you've been a judge, and now a district attorney, the first African-American woman ever in Kaufman's history, by the way.
In the state of Texas.
And in the state of Texas, thank you. Which do you prefer and why of those 3 positions?
Well, it was great when I was a baby 88, because I didn't know anything, and so I was just happy to be somewhere. I was happy when I got my win, and you just pull the case out of the out of the week, they call it abuse sheets. It was arrest report with a prosecution report on top, and you just did your cases, and the serious ones you didn't worry about. I think the real contrast is the best job you'll ever have, and there are politics involved, is a prosecutor, particularly the young ones. You're young, you're trying cases. If you win, it's good. If you lose, the stakes aren't too high, misdemeanor, that's just fun. And if you're not in trial, you can go for a long lunch and you don't get paid much, but you feel like you're doing something good. Being a judge was good. I liked being a judge. Being a judge is isolating. It should be, in a sense, because you can get counsel from other judges, and you have the lawyers educate you in court. But you really shouldn't fraternize with too many people, because because you have to always have that judicial being very impartial. You really want to keep that. So it was great for me. I enjoyed the time that I was on the bench. I am surprised that of the things I've done, this job is the most challenging.
Why?
I'm the final decision and the chief law enforcement officer in Kaufman County. So who goes to grand jury? Who doesn't? Am I going to seek the death penalty on somebody that's committed a capital offense? Is this a good candidate for pretrial diversion? Is this somebody that needs a second chance? Ultimately, those decisions lie with me. I have great staff. I really do. I couldn't do this job. So if you're a judge, a good judge, you come to work, is everybody hates waiting around on the judges. So
Facts.
Go to work and make decisions. It's not that simple when you have a team, when you're the DA. I can't run that office with a court reporter, a bailiff, and a good clerk. I got to have some real good felony prosecutors to help me with serious cases. I've got to have young people that are hungry, that'll go in there and try stuff that may not be a good case, but they got to learn. So it's a team. So I think I've learned that I like being the head of my team. So I'm in the job that I like doing. So safety, security for emerging, growing county. 10 years from now, I'm not going to be doing this job, but everything that we're doing every day when I go to work, what can I do to keep this community safe? What am I doing today that's going to impact this community in 10 years? People complain about the roads and the traffic, and you can't drive around on 80 to Kaufman, but I am thinking about how I'm going to keep them safe. What special section do we need to create for these little babies that get sexually assaulted? How about the women that are abused? What can I do so when my predecessor comes along, I have created the framework for what will be a mid-size office? We will be, in 20 years, Collin County. That's where Kaufman's going to be.
Okay.
So I got a challenge, and I will not see it come to fruition, but that's where we're going.
Given that Kaufman County is largely white, not that diverse, and conservative, has that made it hard for people to accept you as an African-American woman in power?
So let me say this. Kaufman is not as diverse as, say, other places, but we have a very strong Hispanic population in Kaufman.
Okay.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so it'd be anecdotal. I agree with their African-American population, and I would say Asian is even less than that. So probably the African-American population is probably under 10%.
Okay.
But I would say the Hispanic population is probably over 30%.
Okay.
I think it's pretty strong, yes. And that's just me on a thumbnail. It might be 27, I don't know, percent, something like that. Because the reason I say that language is so important for us to communicate was one of the first things I noticed when I was on judge, doing pleas, doing trial. They didn't have translator. I'm like, what are these people doing? I mean, I love my good people in Kaufman County at the courts, but really now 20 years ago when I got on the bench, you got to have a translator do a plea, okay? Because I don't speak well enough Spanish, and that's not the way the rules go.
Right.
So that was an adjustment. I think that, I have been elected and reelected by the people that you just described. So I would say that I'm accepted at least up to 60% or so. There's always detractors, okay?
Yeah.
But I'll take 6% on an election plus. So people in Kaufman have been, it's my home county, my home place. I can go to Facebook and there are people that probably think all kind of awful things about me, all the way down to my color and my toes. I disregard those people.
In the current political climate with everything that's going on and how divisive everything is, has anything been different for you as a Black Republican? I know that your family has been Republican for generations.
Well, my dad's dad was a Republican. The party of Lincoln. I remember Dad always saying that. I don't know if my parents always voted Republican because we never really talked about it, and it wasn't quite as divisive. Being a Democrat, old school Democrats were pretty conservative, but I have always been a Republican and voted for my Republican bosses in Dallas, and the same thing in Kaufman. But I try to focus on what we have in common instead of what divides us, because I can tell you what we have in common. Everybody wants safety. Everybody wants to be able to have their kids in school with other kids, no matter their color, that they can feel safe about. I was in a meeting this morning talking about a detention center. That's where we are. What's next? What are we going to build next? Because people are moving out here. Do we need that? Or are we going to keep transporting our children? And so people want to feel like they can get a good house price for their home and not a sub home in Kaufman County. They want to feel the police respond and the people aren't going to get shot, that police are fair, because that's what we're talking about. We hear those stories. So there are divisions. I would be naive to say they're not, but I don't see those because when I look at my job, I look at everybody the same. They are colorless to me. They are the color of water. They're all the same.
How do you balance work and personal life? You mentioned kids and a husband. Erleigh Wiley is your
Erleigh
husband.
Wiley is my husband.
Erleigh Wiley is your husband. He is also an attorney.
He is.
You have 2 grown sons.
Yeah.
How have you been able to balance your work responsibilities with the rest of your life?
It has been a challenge, but I think Aaron gets a lot of credit for that because it's nice when you have a supportive spouse. And so somebody that's willing to pick up the kids when you have a late meeting. And he's always been able, I mean, he knows it's important, being a public servant himself for years. Now he's in private practice, but he understands the importance of it. My mother died early, but my mother's sister, my aunt, was great. I mean, I could go and fundraise and go to political events when the kids were little, drop them at Amy's house. She's my aunt. That's what they called them. And so I had that. Are there things I missed? Yeah. There are things I missed. I mean, I'm sure my sons could tell you, what a great mom or not, what event I missed, what baseball tournament I didn't get to. You can't do it all. And I tell that to young mothers, do the best you can. Remember what's important. I see some people there are just running ragged. I am blessed to be in the position that I am right now, that I'm at that next stage, but it doesn't matter, and I'm not trying to, it's better that you're not changing diapers and running kids because they drive and they're adults.
Mm-hmm.
But we call my grandmother Big Mama. So Big Mama used to say, honey, easier on the knee than on the heart. So just because they're grown doesn't mean that you're not going to be busy with them. And it's a different kind of busy. But so I say that you balance it. I really do trust my spiritual core. You have to reflect back on that. I try to pray most mornings. I can't say I do it every morning because that'd be a lie. But where I hit that floor, you try to think, what grounds you? What is it that you need to do? So sometimes I have to call and go, hey, I've got this I have to do for someone else. And then I just work late. And we work all the time. When you're elected, you don't quit working. And even when you're a judge, because you got to respond to the search warrants if somebody's calling you, particularly in a smaller county, because we have 5 judges, not 25 judges.
Oh.
You have 1 DA, you don't have a lot of people. We had a shooting a couple of days ago. I got that call at 12:30 a.m., and then your mind races and you can't go back to sleep. And then you're meeting with the people that are part of that. And that's the obligation. I'm going to give it 110. Now, when I'm done, somebody else can stay up and worry. But I worry because I worry about the victim's family. Then I start thinking about, and I sleep well most nights. Then I start thinking about the poor defendant's mom and dad. He's got a mom and dad. You might have a wife and kids somewhere. Their life is ruined. I mean, it is different.
How would you say your cultural values have influenced your approach to leadership and decision making?
Cultural values, I think, come first and initially. Who I am is based on how I was raised. So it's my family's culture of service. And then when you also think of culture, you think of who you are. So we kind of talked about that. And the first thing for me is, being that spiritual realm of being a Christian woman, African American. Those things do come into place. And so your culture can impact what you do, but that core of who you are is the most important North Star. And so I try to treat everybody the way I want to be treated. So that's really my culture, is I'm going to treat you, I don't care what color you are, the way I want to be treated. So I think that's important. We love to slice people up between, because you're this color, you're this sex. It's important, don't get me wrong, because we need to know those things sometime to help us with some decisions. But for the most part, we treat everybody the same, and the rules are going to apply because we're governed by the law here in the state of Texas, and that's the oath I took. And there's no color dividing in there.
You talked a bit earlier about being kind of the final decision maker and decider of the big decisions. How do you navigate high impact decisions, high stakes decisions in your current role?
Well, the good thing is I don't, since I'm in one branch of the government in Texas. What you do is you really just take the law and apply the law. And then that's our governing place. So you've got our legislators go down there, they make reams of paper about, you've looked at the penal code, the code of criminal procedure, and the practice of prosecution has changed. So we comply with the law. We can, there's so much now process in our discovery with, Michael Morton, and procedurally making sure we do everything and comply, because now everything is videoed, which is great because it's helped us support cases or figure out that really wasn't what happened. And so it's a lot more than what it used to be in the old days when you just had a piece of paper and what the prosecutor said was, and the law enforcement officers. Now we have digital proof of most of this stuff. So you start with the law, and then you apply the law with the facts you got. I know that sounds like, oh, that's easy. If something's subjective, then I lead into what you asked me before, which are what my culture and my values are, and which is we're going to try to treat everybody, whoever they are, the same way we treat anybody else.
What advice would you give to women of color, Black women in particular, aspiring to careers in law or leadership?
That you can do anything you want to do. It sounds, corny. And don't limit yourself, because women doubt themselves. And if in doubt about something you want to do, think what a man would do and then probably do it. I'm serious, because, we think, oh, we're going to have a baby, or, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we can't do this. Oh, we don't know enough. Oh, I'm too short. I'm too fat. My clothes aren't right. We keep ourselves out of positions because of our own doubting of ourselves. Don't doubt yourself. If there's something you want to do, because on merit of what you've asked, we're not talking about, competing with men in men's sports, which, we're talking about being an attorney and being in leadership. And those skills are what you have in your heart and what you have in your head. And on that, women are equal. So lean into what you do well, identify your strengths, develop them. It's a muscle like anything else, and exercise it. Analyze them, what you want to do periodically, because we have to pivot. Be resilient. Don't be rigid, because rigid things break, resilient things bounce.
I love that.
Just people want to know, you said this. And I try to be of core values. unchanging. But I'll admit I'm wrong in a minute if somebody's got a better idea. So me this morning or I was like, if y'all, hey, y'all want to run with it, go with it. I'm not married to these ideas. I'm just telling you, here's the facts as I see them. So
I think the best idea should win. It didn't matter who it comes from.
And you said about women, I just seen that we are what I tell women is quit being your own worst enemy.
Explain that.
Because we've defeated ourselves before we go for what we want in leadership. You know, we need to go for it. We're afraid about being shot down.
Oh, like the self-defeating.
The self-defeating thing. You're only one yes away from getting what you want. No. Then yes. So you're only one way from getting a yes. You just have to keep asking. You'll get it.
How do you see the legal system evolving or not to serve marginalized communities?
I think it's tough. You know, I think there's some things that I'm understanding. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know exactly where we are with the paralegals practicing some law in limited areas. So I think we're trying to evolve. If you go sit in the back of a courtroom in a family court, you see marginal people can't get a divorce, can't hire an attorney. I think Dallas should be proud of our work with the indigent and our clinics. So unique in our area, we've done some great things for people. But and we've done the same thing in the criminal system. You know, people would get out, say they're indigent, and still not get an attorney. I think we have seen that evolving to most people have counsel if they want counsel. But I also think that we have to remember that we are in an urban area. And when I meet with my other elected colleagues that are in places in West Texas, there are more cows than attorneys and people. And so it's a different culture there. They represent themselves. They handle their business, not on felonies. And so some of the rules that we promulgate for ourselves in these urban areas, they don't apply out to way out West Texas or deep East Texas. There are no lawyers there. So it'd be really nice to have lawyers that want to work in those areas. To not avoid your answer, if you're talking about how are marginalized people affected as we think about in the criminal arena that have had issues and how we're dealing with them, I think we've had more tools. If you're asking that, I know when I was a judge, probably the best work I did, and some of those people were very marginal, was in the treatment courts. That we've learned that everybody that has a drug problem, everybody that has a drinking problem, that the penitentiary does not solve those problems. So we have, in I would say the 30 years I've been practicing, we've evolved. We used to start at a place where everybody was locked up, and now we know that locking up addicts doesn't work. That's how we evolved into state jail treatments and other treatments and treatment courts. And so yeah, we've got a little more social work. We've got a long way to go because our biggest crisis of marginalized people is not color. It is the mental health crisis that is in our county jails. It is the biggest treatment facility you have in each county. Those are the marginal people I worry about.
What can the legal profession and institutions in which lawyers serve do to ensure women are advancing within their ranks?
I think in the government sector, which I'm in, I think that happens. I think that even in the Dallas office in the 90s and up until I left in the mid-2000s or early 2000s, women were, I can name women that were, we called them super chiefs or supervising attorneys, chiefs of court. I remember the then district attorney, John Vance, and later Bill Hill said, you know, it was more than 50% of the women that were prosecutors. So women have pushed through. I think that people that could speak to that would be the private sector, even yourself and your firm. Different firms do different things as far as hiring women. I think women have pushed through. Mm-hmm. I wonder about people of color in the law. I see a lot of more well-heeled and not.
We're still on like 10% of the legal profession.
That's right. But not in the government sector. Women or minorities?
Minorities. Minorities is what I was speaking to.
Yeah.
But women, you're right.
Yeah. I think women are there. What I will say I found interesting is when I was a judge, if we were in your typical cases, It was very well represented. The higher the stakes, the bigger the money, because I had a general jurisdiction court, the less diverse it was. Enough money. But those were people's decisions of who they hired when they were litigating multi-million-dollar transactional businesses.
Changing lanes a little bit, once again, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh, man. My mother gave me so much advice. Some of it's not relevant anymore, you know.
Like what?
Don't get pregnant. I mean, I'm too old for that. I mean, that was the advice.
Ship has sailed.
Yeah, that ship sailed. No, probably the best advice I ever got was my mother was great, probably my first mentor. And people say that, but I just think about when she was born at such a time and how she excelled. She was never a person that was a victim. You can do anything you want to do. Just put your mind to it. You may have to be better to get the same place. She never sugarcoated anything. She just said, but just be better. I mean, as if it was no big deal.
Easy.
As if it was easy. Just be better. So probably I grew up with that, that mindset of just pushing through, be better. But I also got great advice from other women and men along the way. Be disciplined. You only have to push through on something to get to the next step. Just a little bit more effort will get you to that next place. Be yourself. Be genuine. You go to court, you see, man, Jade does a great job with this. Her closing. Steal something out of that, but make it your own. I can't be Jade, but I can say, I like the way she turned that phrase. I'm going to take that. And so learn from other people. Give other people praise too for what they do.
So remain a student always.
Always a student. And don't pull the ladder up. Help somebody.
Help
somebody. We do that. All of us, because you know what? You don't ever know which way you're going to cross again. The person that I am their boss now may give me a job in 10 years. I might need it for some reason. I hope not, but I could. And I really have seen that in my career. You just never know what path. There are very few people you just totally X out. Even people you don't really agree with, just move along. Occasionally, you will come across an unreasonable person. And I got this from a sermon that I was awake enough on. And there are people that are totally unreasonable. I would even say, we use that word, I don't like it, crazy, because it's a general thing. But when you come across someone that's unreasonable, there's no reason to say anything, but you need to separate yourself from unreasonable people. People that you cannot change, deter, just separate yourself. It's a time waster.
What's the biggest professional challenge you faced?
On the bench, probably following the law when you felt compassion for people. God, I hated those forcible detainers when people were getting evicted and they had, it's hard to follow the law when it's the law and you
Disagree.
And you disagree. That is a challenge, but we have to follow the law. I didn't take an oath to write the law, so I got to follow the law, and I'm not going to do that. That's hard. That was hard. Treatment court had a guy like this guy. God, I liked him in my treatment court. I had given him so many chances, and he would come in there and pop dirty. And drinking. We did a breath test at the door. He had crazy stories about why the mouthwash. It's like, dude, I know you lying. And I had to, I liked him. I began to like him because in treatment court, you see him every week. I had to sentence him. And I revoked him. And I gave him a chunk of time. It was the range of punishment on the 3rd degree.
Right.
So it was 2 to 10. I probably gave them 8. It was a lot of time. Then it was under 10. So they filed a motion for shock probation. I'm in the weeds for people who listen that aren't criminal. I didn't shock him. He set that out. I told him. But in the end, the benefit for everybody else in that treatment court was amazing. But that was hard.
If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
I wish I could sing to go with that piano because I can carry a tune. But a nice superpower would be to be able to sing in such a way that you could lift up your voice to the Lord on Sunday, and then for fun with people, that would be fun. But that's not a superpower, but it would be something that would be cool to be able to actually do. A superpower is something that's supernatural. I don't really want to read people's thoughts because for the most part, I can tell who we're thinking. So I've already got that.
Oh.
For the most part, you have to be really good for me just to be like. So I don't know. I don't want to fly anywhere unless I'm in a plane. But to have a talent as opposed to
The singing. Maybe we'll assume your singing is bad enough to where you being a good singer would be a
yeah,
superpower.
it's pretty bad.
If you could have dinner with any 3 people, living or dead,
Oh,
who
really?
would they be and why?
Really, you didn't tell me. Ask me that. 3 people, living or dead. Who would I want to talk to? I am fascinated. I am fascinated with Churchill.
Okay.
I find that Churchill, World War II. I think I've read enough about FDR. I don't really need to talk to FDR, but I'd love to know what it was like. I looked at a museum that they had in New Orleans about World War II. And when you looked at the map of the world and what the Nazis had done, that we literally had this little speck that was England and the rest of the world was dark. How he stayed the course. I would like to talk to Harriet Tubman, the bravery, the Underground Railroad, how the hell she did that. How did she master that? Wow. How many people there are all so many great people of color that did so much that we stand on their shoulders, but her taking people and with her own life at risk. Now that's real bravery. So the third, probably somebody current. Who would I want to talk to currently that is of interest to me? That is going to be interesting to talk to about what they've made decisions about. There's a lot of people. I could do 3, 4, and 5 there, but I got to come up with just one because those are the history questions that I want to know. But I need somebody present day that I'd like to know about their thinking as we move through.
Not like Michelle Obama, not Oprah, nobody like that.
Oh, no. I haven't talked to them. Nothing's wrong with them. I think they're great, but, they've got such a great body of work that I think Oprah would be fascinating. I think Oprah and Michelle Obama are both fascinating women, particularly not saying that Michelle's not, but I think Oprah is, when you're down to one word, you say Michelle, you might not be, I don't know what you're talking about, but when you are a one-word person and you are an entity, that is interesting. So I find that interesting as far as business models. It would be interesting to talk to someone in business with those kind of aspirations. So maybe we'll slot Oprah in, but I have to say that I still have a question mark there.
Okay. What would you tell the new lawyer version of yourself?
Don't hesitate about anything. Just do it. If there's anything you think you want to do, just do it. Don't wait. What are you waiting on? Because you're going to get to be my age one day. Because you don't know that when you're 25, when I started practicing. Just do it in your career. If you want to go another country and learn another language, I hear all these people, I wish I could do it. You don't have kids, you're not married, just go, do it. What are you waiting on? It's a big world out there. Get in it. Do you have any other books in you? Any future books planned? I want to. I work too much right this minute to write. I'm so glad I got a chance to write something and I think about it. what happens is you do get to your midpoint of your life, wink, wink, and you get reflective back. And so you do think about your parents. As a woman, I think about the women that molded me or ideas. I think about what stories that would be like. That's great. My dad, it was a football coach, always so positive. I'm blessed. I had good parents. But then I think about these other stories that I've thought about, kind of mystery crime books that have a little plot twist I thought would be interesting. So yeah, I've got another book in me. I'll keep you posted.
Okay. Final question. What do you want your legacy to be?
I would like people to think that I may be firm, but that I am fair. That doing the right thing when nobody's around is as important as doing the right thing when the cameras are rolling. And that the only person you have to be true to is yourself. And so be true.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking this hour with me.
Has it been an hour?
We are almost done. We have 2 minutes left. Thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time.
Thank you, Jade.
Yes, you're welcome.